welcome to the Pearl Americas podcast. In this episode, we will explore the evolving landscape of security and violence in the Americas and the Caribbean. We will hear from Dr. Vinicius de Carvalho, reader in Brazilian and Latin American Studies in the Department of War Studies at King's College London, who reflects on the complexity of transnational organized crime and the ways in which criminal networks adapt to state institutions, regulatory gaps, and emerging markets. His intervention invites us to think more precisely about how we define security, how criminal economies operate, and why there is no single solution to a challenge that is constantly changing. This episode was recorded during the high-level dialogue, an overview of security and violence in the Americas and the Caribbean, structural factors and new trends, held as part of the first gathering of the Pearl Americas Parliamentary Network on Security, titled Human Security and Regional Stability, Parliamentary Responses to Challenges in the Americas and the Caribbean, which took place on November 27th and 28th, 2025 in Panama City, Panama.
Thank you very much for inviting me to take part of this discussion here with you. I just want to make a disclaimer before we start, because normally people say you are an expert. I just want to say that I'm someone who is studying the topic. I think it's a little bit true. It would be arrogant to say that I'm expert in an issue so complex and diverse in the region. And I think the ideas that I will bring here will be helping me more to learn than to teach anything. So let's take that as a space of sharing experiences, my experiences as someone that's reading, studying, researching, and in the field as well. But more importantly is in this discussion with you, with policymakers, with politicians, with practitioners, that we learn and can understand such a complex issue better. And the question is also very complex. I don't know even how to start that, but I think the most important aspect to highlight in the beginning is to say that what we are calling today as transnational organized crime that is threatening most of our region and our continent and the world in general, it's a very professional group. In these terms, when we talk about professionalism, it means as well that nothing is improvised here. Those are complex webs. Webs that don't have a topic or a head that you can cut this head and then we have the problem solved. They are very flexible, not only flexible in terms of organization, but also flexible in terms of which sort of market they are exploring. And I want to insist a lot in this aspect of market here. Despite many people say that they don't consider borders or they don't consider countries and sovereignties, etc., I would say the opposite. They need states. They need states in order to operate. And they need states why? Because they need to understand that states have different regulations, that have different ways of addressing security, and consequently, in having the states, they can profit from the weakness of one or other state in order to manage and organize their, let's say, market here. There is also another important aspect. They are non-hierarchical, they are flexible, they are adaptable. It's a joint venture, and they operate in vacuums. They operate in where the state is not there. And it's not only providing services or providing policies. It's sometimes as well when the state is there providing policies, providing resources, but with some gaps that are those gaps that are filled with the possibilities of these organized crimes. In other words, I can say that sometimes the states define what will be the role and the business of transnational organized crime within them. And then we can list a lot of things that is the, let's say, the portfolio or the menu of illegalities or criminals that we have. We can go from human trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, trade arms, trade of counterfeit goods, trade of goods that are legal but enter illegally, illicit in the same, flora crimes, fauna crimes, heroin, cannabis, cocaine trafficking, synthetic drugs, cybercrime, financial crimes, as well as exploring games, for instance. That's quite common nowadays, that organized crime is laundering money through official games that you can play online very easily. So I think we need to have this complexity in consideration when we look at the issue of organized crime. And why that? Because I think for parliamentarians in particular, And then coming to the end of my answer to this question, we need to have very precise definition of what we are calling security here. We start with a question of the language that we are speaking here in this space. In English, we use security. I was very surprised that you said safety. We have two words in English, safe and security, that in Spanish we translate as seguridad, in Portuguese segurança. Yeah, and what we mean with that when we say public security. What we are expressing through that. Are we talking about safety or security? There is another important issue that I may come back later about that, but this definition of terminology in laws are fundamental, because it's exactly when we don't define that precisely is that the space that the criminality or the criminal groups use in order to benefit of the state to promote that. I was reading the newspaper of this country in the morning, the breakfast, something quite rare nowadays to still have printed newspapers in hotels. And I was impressed, and I can say probably that in our countries will be the same. We will have at least 3 or 4 pages reporting crimes that are in some way related to transnational organized crime. And one of those is sometimes passing, not perceived as part of this complex environment, is the vapes. They are creating laws about should we allow or not to selling vapes in the country or not, where they come, etc., etc. It's exactly this time that, because of democracies, we need time to decide laws, we need to discuss, etc. In this vacuum is the time that transnational organized crime is benefiting from that, to selling these products, a product that is produced somewhere legally, sold somewhere illegally. And in this space, in between, in this gap, in this time that we are not responding immediately or precisely, it's when the transnational organized crime finds its space to benefit and from profit. And let's be very, very clear about that. There is not a single a silver bullet that will sort the problem. It is a complex problem that needs constant and careful addressing, because there is not a single law that will sort this problem once and forever. We need constantly to look at the dynamics of society, the dynamics of the economy of the crime, the dynamics of the articulation of these groups in order to manage to address that properly.